Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. Today we're going over a bit more of the aftermath from YCS Indianapolis. It's the first event where we had Age of Overlord legal, and it definitely proved to be a game-changing set, with Rescue Ace thriving with the new Diabellstar engine, SP popping up in basically everyone's extra deck, and even the Horus engine exceeding expectations and making a couple of top cut lists as well. Now, I don't want this to be like a huge over-exaggeration since it is just one event and the format is still developing, but I do think it's important that we look at what happened with the format and how those changes have affected the market, because those changes will certainly be a sign of things to come for the rest of 2023. Let's get started. Okay, so we'll start off by looking at one of the best cards to come out of Age of Overlord, Wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils. So as I'm sure you all know, the Diabellstar engine came out in Age of Overlord, and it is an incredibly strong engine, providing a draw, some searches, and the ability to summon out a level 1 fire monster from the deck. Of course, for Rescue Ace, this means that you can bring out a copy of Hydrant for free, and Hydrant is basically one of the most important cards for the strategy, as it searches for a Rescue Ace monster, and it empowers all of your spell and trap cards. Rescue Ace was definitely on full display at the YCS, taking 12 of the top 32 spots, which was the most of any deck by far. The next single most represented deck was Pearly, which only held on to 4 spots. Now, Rescue Ace was really hyped up over in the OCG as one of the most dominant decks after being combined with the Diabellstar engine, and it has certainly lived up to the hype here in the TCG as well, with the finals being a Rescue Ace mirror match. So before, we did want to be a bit cautious when it came to picking up your copies of Wanted. There was always the possibility of Wanted falling in price, as it had hit $50 at one point and looked like it might trend back down towards $40. However, with its performance at the YCS, the card has rebounded back up to $60, with a ton of players looking to jump on Rescue Ace, as well as the newly released Diabellstar engine. Worth noting is that it also supports the Fire King deck as well, and Fire Kings will be getting a new structure deck in December. Of course, we'll have to see more than just the one event to know exactly where Rescue Ace and the Diabellstar cards fit within the meta, but all early signs tell us that the engine is going to be a top tier one that sees a ton of competitive play moving forward. Expect this card's price to cool off a little bit as more and more people open their boxes of Age of Overlord. We're probably going to expect Wanted to stay pretty steady between the $40 to $60 range. Up next, we are looking at a card from the actual Rescue Ace archetype, and it's Rescue Ace Turbulence. So of course we have to look at something from the archetype itself, though to be fair, a lot of the cards were actually printed in lower rarities, so there wasn't too much price sensitivity for the deck. Now historically, we've been paying attention to Hydrant, which is still a $50 to $55 card. However, from the YCS, we did see a lot of deck lists that were only running 2 copies of Hydrant, so there wasn't much movement in Hydrant's price. Rather, it seems that Turbulence was the main card that caught a lot of people's attention, as the deck's main boss monster that helps the deck by setting 4 Rescue Ace speller traps directly out of the deck. It shouldn't surprise anyone to see this card being run at 2. Now, leading up to the YCS, this card was actually quite affordable. On release, it was only like $1 or $2, right? It was down at around $10 for a little bit. Although it is a key card for the deck, it is a bit harder to summon, and you don't want to open with multiples. You're just typically going to run 2 copies. However, the dominant performance put on by Rescue Ace has led to the card almost doubling in price, to where it now sits at around $18 for the ultra rare copy. The collector's rares haven't really moved too much. They're between $45 and $50 right now, which I think is pretty fair for a collector's rare from one of the best archetypes in the game right now. Hopefully you guys have your Turbulences from when they were only $1 or $2 before. Expect this card's price to stay between $12 and $15 for as long as Rescue Ace is in the format without a reprint, leading up to the next ban list. Another card from Age of Overlord here, we have MST Glory of Horus. Now, MST is one of the most important cards for any strategy looking to use the Horus engine. You discard this card and another card from your hand to search for King Sarcophagus, and then you get to draw an additional card as well. So ultimately you are breaking even, but you are going +1 if you're summoning MST back from your graveyard technically. Of course, the Horus engine requires you to have access to King Sarcophagus to really do anything, so being able to search the card is of course a key point of the deck. At this YCS this past weekend, I think you could probably say that Horus overperformed. I'm not sure whether or not all of the Turbulence lists that made top cut used the Horus stuff. I know at least one of them didn't, I'm not too sure. I know a lot of people are just really not that fond of Horus in tier, and prefer to stick with the way that the deck was built prior to Age of Overlord. However, the surprise was actually seeing a Horus Bestial list make top 32 at the event. A pretty cool list. I think it used one of the Resonator cards from the Crimson King structure deck as well. But yeah, not like a dominant performance from Horus or anything like that, but seems like at least there's some stuff there that the decks will be able to build upon moving forward. With how lackluster it felt the Horus engine was looking initially, we were seeing MST.TV trending downwards in price to where secrets were approaching $25 each, but they instantly bounced back up after this weekend and are currently sitting at $35 each. I don't know just how good the Horus cards are going to end up being. It's impossible to say because it feels like the cards are just both so good yet so bad at the same time. I don't really know how to explain it. I do expect the card to drop, but it's really going to depend on what else people can figure out about the archetype. Assuming that it does well, I could see it going back up to around $40, but if not, I do definitely see it dropping back down to between $20 and $25. Up next, it's Scrubbed Raid. So shout out here to my buddy Danny Ramirez Medina, who let me know about this one this past weekend. Check him out on TCG Player. I believe his username is SlumpyTCG. But yeah, Scrubbed Raid is a card that was run by Johnny Nguyen, also known as Asian Persuasion, in his Runic deck, which he piloted to a top 32 finish at the YCS this past weekend. Basically, Scrubbed Raid is a never-ending battle fader, allowing you to stop your opponent's battle phase every turn by sending a card that you control to the graveyard. Now, this could be a Runic Fusion monster, which mainly only has effects like on summon, but you could also send a duplicate of a Floodgate that you've drawn as well. It could just be set because the card you send doesn't have to be face up, and all of this buys you additional turns to deck your opponent out with your Runic cards. It seems kind of annoying to have to play against, but it was certainly effective. What's even more annoying is that Scrubbed Raid only has one printing from Duelist Pack 9. This is from back in 2010, and it's the set that Junk Archer was first released in. Because of this, over the last day or so, Scrubbed Raid has gone from being a $5 card all the way up to $18 now, with barely any copies available on TCG Player. Extremely crazy price jump, though of course this will come back down in the next couple of days as people see this and locate their copies to list back onto the market. Hopefully this is something that Konami reprints soon before they decide to hit any more Runic cards. Next up is a card that I think basically everyone should be running now. It is IP Mascarena. So this is one of the earlier Link 2 monsters that like everyone was just running generically in their extra decks. It allows you to Link summon during your opponent's main phase and prevents the Link monster that you summon out from being destroyed by card effects. Now typically this meant that you would make Nightmare Unicorn, turning Unicorn into a disruption that could spin a card back into the deck on your opponent's turn. Now lately, IP hasn't really been seeing that much play. Going into Unicorn is still cool, but the discard can be really costly when games are so resource dependent as they are now. However, with the release of SP Little Knight, it basically demands that this card comes back into the format. SP banishes a card on summon if you use an extra deck monster as a link material, so it doesn't require a discard, and it won't proc the effects that trigger when a card is destroyed or hits the graveyard as well. On top of that, your opponent simply can't pop the SP. They'll need some other way to get rid of it, or they're going to have to play around its second disruption as well. Now, in terms of price, IP had fallen quite a bit after its unexpected inclusion in Battles of Legend Monstrous Revenge as a secret rare. It felt extremely accessible, and you could grab a copy for only like $1 or $2. Now, however, that IP is making its way back into the format and is relevant once again, people are looking to pick up the card, and its price for all of those low rarity versions, including the Secrets, Gold, and Ultra Rare, is anywhere from $3 to $5. If you can grab them, I think the original art Secret Rares look the nicest. I really wish that the alternate arts came in something other than Gold Rare because those would look really amazing, but for now, the secrets are probably the cleanest. Depending on how long this card goes without a reprint, I don't think it'll ever go back to being like a $15 to $20 card, but I do think that between $8 and $10 is definitely realistic, assuming that the card doesn't get any sort of unexpected reprint anytime soon. So this one is probably a bit more unexpected, but Ixie's Encore is a card that caught my attention yet again after this past weekend. In the top 32, of course, Rescue Ace took the most top spots with 12, but Pearly was actually the next most represented deck, taking up 4 spots. On one hand, this does mean that the format is incredibly diverse, with any number of decks being able to be successful, but it also tells us that Pearly is a strong contender that probably isn't going anywhere until the next ban list. That being said, Ixie's Encore is a card that I wanted to check up on as one of the premier counters to the deck, since it's one of the few things able to deal with a 6 or more material X-Pearly Noir. Now to be fair, it is only useful against the one deck, and if you're on something like Unchained, you're more likely to be playing Triple Tactics Thrust, so that you can just search for Herald of the Abyss, but Ixie's Encore is a good counter too that isn't dependent on your opponent doing anything overly specific. This card's price has been incredibly volatile ever since Pearly was first identified as a meta deck, but despite the past 6 to 8 months or so that Pearly has been around, Ixie's Encore has never received a reprint. Therefore, its 2 Ultra printings from Judgment of the Light and the 2014 Megatons are each quite expensive, with relatively few quantities on the market, as they've gone up recently from being around $15 before to now being between $25 and $30. Definitely a card that you guys should be keeping an eye on, since it does seem unlikely that this card will be included in Rarity Collection, and it wasn't in OTS Tournament Pack 23 either, so only time will tell us if and when this card will finally get its much needed reprint. Finally, one card I feel like I should mention is Infernal Flame Banshee. This card is an Ultra from Age of Overlord, and it has a really simple effect. It's a generic rank 4 monster where you can detach a material from it to either search or dump a pyro monster from your deck. Really simple, and it seems like it's not something that anything is really going to make use of anytime soon. Even if you were playing something like Volcanics, right? Like, you'd probably run this in your extra deck, but it doesn't seem like something you'd be able to make all that often. However, apparently this is a card that can be made in the Centurion strategy. Trudea is a level 4 pyro monster, and you can use Banshee to dump Trudea from your deck, which sets up a play with Faith of Centurion as well. Now, I don't really know that much about Centurion quite yet. I do know that it's like a tier 2, maybe 2.5 deck over in the OCG right now. Nothing overly powerful, but still, it is an actual deck and not just some like random bad rogue strategy. As an Ultra, it looked like Banshee was doomed to just be another 50-cent Ultra Rare, but the last couple of days or so, it seems like that has turned around, and Banshees are around the $2 to $3 mark. For now, the card is still cheap, and hey, who knows, we might find some cool new Centurion card in an upcoming core set next year that breaks the deck and makes it tier 0. I wouldn't buy a bunch of these at $2 or $3, but if you can grab them for $1 off of someone at your locals when they're opening a box, I do think it's a decent grab. Or if you can grab them for a couple of smaller trades, I think it might be something that's worth holding on to if you grab them slowly here and there. Alright guys, that is it for today's episode. It should be really interesting to see over the next couple of weekends if the results from YCS Indianapolis are going to be consistent with the next couple of events, or if we're going to see some changes because people have adapted or they have a better idea of what to expect out of the format. Who knows, only time is going to tell. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please make sure that you let us know by hitting that thumbs up button. Also make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below about the cards we talked about today and what other cards are currently trending on the market. And also, if you haven't already, do hit that subscribe button. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.